All right, we're here with Dean Dalton, Executive Director of the NFL Alumni Academy. Dean, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy guy with the Academy rolling right now, so I appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, we're literally on the field as I speak, and I jump back into our lodging for training camp here. It's the Sheraton Hotel, so this is part of my where I live for the next football season here.
Gotcha. So I guess before we get started, I always like to ask guests, give us your superhero origin story. How did you get from high school kid all the way to now being the director of the NFL Alumni Academy?
It's not a typical journey or a natural progression. um, out of high school, I played every sport you could play in high school, and was offered an opportunity to attend the United States Air Force Academy, play football there. So I went to the Air Force Academy and we played football. My goal was to beat Notre Dame every year and then graduate and be a pilot. And so that was the original plan. But as I've learned here, the lifetime of coaching, you have the game plan, but how you win or lose depends on how you adjust to the game plan. So my first big life game plan adjustment was a car accident I was in my sophomore year, and so I was broken up pretty good. And since that point in time, I've put a lot of orthopedic surgeons, children's through college with all the
Oh, wow.
surgeries I've had. So I went through that trauma. I lost my pilot qualification status, but being a football player, I knew I was I lost my PQ, but I could still play ball. So after a bunch of surgeries, I continued to play college football. I ended up not being able to be a pilot. Finished my academics and my football at Western Illinois University. At that point, I was going to go to law school. So Plan B from superhero of Captain America pilot was to go to the FBI and
Oh,
be serve for protect and serve in that capacity. And the best path to the FBI in those days was law school. So I was going to attend law school after my football days. And my senior year, after another surgery on a couple screws in the shoulder, I was offered an opportunity to coach, and it worked. I loved it. Recruiting was enjoyable. Building the relationships, being a teacher on and off the field, it really was a great fit. And my father was a legendary high school coach. My mother, an English teacher. I never ever thought I would go down the path of education and coaching at all. And in fact, I've done both. I've been a high school principal twice along the journey.
oh, wow.
Coached high school in a couple different states. I've been at four major universities. Started there at Western Illinois University, went on to the University of Wisconsin, and went from graduate assistant. So I did get my master's degree. I never did attend University of Chicago Law School as planned, but and then I fast forward. I coached through University of Wisconsin several years, a couple head coaches, and then I took an interesting change in the 1980s. I left a Big Ten university and I went to a Southwestern Athletic Conference university in the SWAC. So here I was, a young coach, joining a staff at an HBCU school in Houston, Texas, Texas Southern University. It was a tremendous career move. I learned, I grew, I improved. I was I was in Houston, Texas, so I was in incredible recruiting grounds and recruited throughout the state of Texas and the South. And so it proved to be a great move professionally. Coached and recruited and worked with a number of tremendous players. Obviously, yeah, the HBCU has produced great NFL players for years, and those the schools really were a lot of fun. And I grew as a person and I grew as a coach during those years. And some of the guys, James Williams, Will Moore, Joe Birch, Michael Strahan, you might have heard of. All those guys went on to get opportunities in the National Football League after playing with us in SWAC, and it was great. Then I returned to the Big Ten, coached at Purdue University with Fred Akers, And then we had kids, and that changes everything. And so I settled myself down, and I worked with the high schools. So I had this master's degree in education, and I went back and I had taught in colleges along the way. So I went back and I took two paths. Remember that whole FBI Captain America path?
Yeah.
I revisited that. I went to the FBI office in Houston and applied. And then the other path was football, and that had been my world. And so I wanted to scale it down to make sure that I wasn't an absentee father. So I looked at high school coaching, and I was in the state of Texas, which is a wonderful place for high school football. And so I took a job in Austin, Texas at St. Michael's Academy. Father Conzen was the head of the school. Later, he went on. Actually, his other football relationship was Sean McVay, who he was the principal in Marist School in Atlanta when Sean was an actual student athlete there.
Hmm.
So when the Rams made the Super Bowl, Father Conzen did their services for the team.
Oh,
So it's
cool.
kind of fun. He contacted me. He says, "Hey, Dean, you kind of really got me going on this football path." And later on, he got to do the chapel service for the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
so that's cool. But no, we had a great time at St. Michael's Academy. But what happened was the FBI said, "Hey, we're interested." And when I met Father Conzen, he gave me this profound quote because he slid the contract across the table. I was there with my wife and accepting the job as the principal athletic director and head football coach at St. Michael's Academy in Austin, Texas. And in Texas, as you know, priorities would make me the football coach, the athletic director, and then also the principal. so so we accepted that role, but not before I got this quote that I've used throughout my professional career. Father Conzen, as I slid the contract across the table to me, he said, "We really, look forward to you coming and taking this leadership role at our school." And I said, "Father, I want to be completely transparent, have everything on the table." I have simultaneously applied for a number of jobs, coaching jobs and school and educational jobs, but I also applied to the FBI. And I would give that it's a 12 to 18 month process for evaluation and check and background checks and interviews and that process of selection. I may or may not be invited to the FBI Academy in Quantico, but in fact, I have initiated that. And if in fact they offer that to me, it's a consideration I would consider.
Mhm.
And I want you to know that because you're offering me a fabulous position here at St. Michael's Academy, and I may or may not be here 20 years. And he said, and this is the quote, push the contract back. He goes, "I'd like you to sign this, Dean. We've made a decision that we'd like your leadership here." And the quote was, "Because I believe excellent leadership, however brief, will have a far more lasting impact than mediocrity forever."
Hmm.
I was like, that was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I signed on and we turned things into overdrive there at St. Michael's Academy. So he said, as I signed it, he said, "So make an impact."
Mhm.
I was there for 1 year.
Oh, wow.
So moved our family, got everything situated, hired a tremendous staff in our various leadership positions in coaching student athletes in sports, educators, in our teaching staff. And that wonderful little school is today a tremendous college prep school. There's St. Michael's Academy in Austin, Texas, and we went and did well. Our girls basketball team, went to state. We were fortunate in football. We took 23 scrappy little young men, and we made a run, and we went all the way into the quarterfinals there in the state of Texas. And we had a wonderful season. All of our sports and areas thrived. We raised a bunch of money so they could expand the facilities, and the FBI came calling and said, "Hey,
Wow.
we're interested." So long story short, I moved my family cross country, accepted the position with the FBI, hired the athletic director, the principal, and the head football coach replacements for my roles at St. Michael's, and we moved on. Uh, I was obviously not supposed to serve our country in the Air Force as a pilot, and it turns out I wasn't supposed to serve our country in the FBI because as I was running and getting my fitness level up to go to Quantico for the training, um, car came. I jumped out of the way. I broke my ankle,
Oh my
and
gosh.
I did, and so my wife said that was the blessing, and so I returned my path, to football, and I was fortunate that I had enough successes and relationships in my years of college football, and then some success at high school level, and relationships in the process. I built a business called the War Room with a gentleman named Gary Horton, and Gary was a longtime NFL scout. And the War Room went on to become what is today Scouts Inc. ESPN purchased our
Oh
company,
wow.
but that transition from the War Room allowed me to plug into NFL teams at a higher level than I had been as a college coach. And so plugging into those NFL teams, they saw our personnel work, and ultimately that led to, I think, 5 of our staff members getting jobs in scouting and personnel in the league. Our most notable War Room alum is Jim Nagy. He's a Senior Bowl executive director. Jim started with us. Another very visible alumni of the War Room. He's still at ESPN. He traveled with the company, and that's Todd McShay, who runs the drafts
Hmm.
analysis for ESPN. So those are a couple of young guys that went on to have fantastic careers. I'm envious of Jim Nagy. He's got multiple Super Bowl rings from his years with the Packers, the Patriots, the Seahawks, and the Chiefs.
Wow.
My years with Minnesota Vikings, we had a couple of championships, and I'm fortunate. I had a fabulous career, but the one thing he didn't get
Hmm.
to attain was going past that NFC championship to the Super Bowl. So we had a great run, and then I was offered an opportunity to join Dennis Green's coaching staff, and that was a dream come true to be coaching in the National Football League, and we made a run. We were winning. Our kids were born in Houston, but they grew up mostly in Minnesota, and through that long run with Dennis Green, and then later Mike Tice as head coach, and they make another playoff runs. We we had a great opportunity.
Hmm.
As football is, the team sold. The new ownership want to bring in their coaches. Brad Childers from the Philadelphia Eagles was brought on board. Chili and I were friends, and ironically, we had always talked that we probably never coached together because our philosophies were like apples and oranges, right? and
Yeah.
but when he and I talked, I said, "Don't worry about an interview unless you are trying to have me switch to defense." And so so that's the transition there. My opportunities to stay in the National Football League were 3, and it just wasn't the right fit. At that time, now our 2 sons were in high school. They'd grown up there. They'd done everything right. I've been a spokesman now for a number of years with Tony Dungy's foundation called All Pro Dads, and I didn't want to be the All Pro hypocrite. So I put my family first. I stepped away from coaching, and at that point in time, I was fortunate to have some media opportunities. So I did TV and radio for 6 years. My 6 year run at NFL radio on Sirius XM led to a new opportunity. I was contacted after being heard on the radio internationally by a company out of Australia called Catapult. Catapult Sports reached out to me and asked if I would help introduce their GPS athlete analytics products to North America. And so I studied them and learned, and I got a little deeper dive into the sports science aspects, and ultimately it turned out to be a terrific relationship. We the Catapult analytics, GPS analytics is in every major sport except I think baseball. So the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, NCAA schools, sports from women's field hockey to men's hockey to football It is a very useful tool once you understand the methodology and how to use the data. So we worked with a lot of coaches for those years. At that point in time, I was a free agent in the business world, and I was offered an opportunity to go with Zebra Technologies. And I worked with Zebra, and Zebra then is known to most football fans as Next Gen Stats. That's the branding that the
Hmm.
NFL has. So Next Gen Stats has RFID technologies in the shoulder pads, and that's how they do all the tracking during the TV broadcasts and at practice fields and so forth. So I've had a really interesting run. Then I became the tech guy, which is ironic, Mark, because I can hardly text message, right? And so in that process, I was fortunate to just be a coach, build a team, have a vision, and then let players play, let them do their jobs. And so I learned the technology piece just as much as I was teaching it, I was learning. And then talking with Troy Vincent in the NFL league office, he said, Dean, this is all great, but how do we increase player safety? We want to we don't want to make the game softer. We just want to make it safer. So we went down a number of different paths. And in the process, I came to the concept of, in-season player development will help NFL teams because as we've seen, the injury rates have just been rising, and the history and the studies show that. And so as the NFL product was getting later in the season, the players that were coming on the bottom of the rosters as replacements to injuries weren't as prepared as they should have been. And therefore, you kind of saw a decline in overall, performance levels from NFL teams because their players weren't as ready as they should have been when they came into the bottom of the roster and an injury moved them up, right?
Hmm.
And when they found themselves, competing to get on the field, they weren't ready. So that's where the NFL Alumni Academy came in. That was the genesis. We made this presentation to Troy Vincent and his entire football operations staff. They liked the concept. We do it privately. We do it in a partnership with the NFL Alumni Association. The NFL Alumni Association represents everybody that ever played or was contracted to play in the National Football League. And so it's been a great relationship and dynamic. It's a need that teams use, and so of course we decided to launch our very first NFL Alumni Academy the year of COVID, and so 2 years ago, this is our third season now. 2 years ago, we were scrambling to make adjustments because we had to fulfill all NFL protocols. And that first year of COVID, they changed on a regular basis. The quarantines were 14 days, 6 days, they're everything. So we were really, tap dancing to keep up with all the NFL protocols, all the testing protocols. So again, another learning experience. But in that process, we put a number of guys back on teams. And so teams were signing players and they were much more prepared. Teams liked the fact that we are all NFL coaches. Everybody at the academy, our entire staff, including operations guys, have all worked with teams and have long tenured coaching careers. We've got head coaches, we've got Hall of Famers coaching for our staffs, and everybody's an NFL vet. And that gives great exposure to the players, but also gives us credibility with the teams.
Hmm.
And so as we do this process, we've been fortunate to uh, bring on overachieving players that have the talent level that just had one deficiency or another that kept them off a roster, and then from that we coach that deficiency out. We make them better. We improve their football IQ because a step ahead in your head is faster than two with your feet. And so we do all the little things to teach them the game, to teach them how to be a pro, and that was the extent of our origin of the academy, and placing guys back on teams. Teams are satisfied. We guys are in the academy on a Thursday. They get signed to go out, do a workout, and crush the workout. Then they move on to get to practice squad. We've had guys leave on a Thursday and be active on Saturday, or excuse me, on Sunday, and be in the stat sheet. Getting tackles
Yeah.
on the field. So we've had great successes. We've taken guys from not having a pro day to now being second year of an active roster guy. And so long story short, we've had enough success putting players back on NFL teams that we were very popular now. And
Mm-hmm.
and the NFL teams like us. It's taken 3 years now. We have great traction. We have a private web portal, and that's how the teams can go and view what we do every day. So I just come and leaving the field, the players are out there. Everything we're doing is taped, all right, and it's on a private web portal just for the 32 NFL teams. And that's the dynamic of how the academy came to being, how we are here today. Now, since COVID, we've expanded our positions to we do all 22 positions, as opposed to the first year just
This is
doing offensive
three.
line, defensive line, and running backs. Yes.
Okay. And so the NFL Alumni Academy was not created because of COVID. It was just bad. It was already created before COVID.
Yeah, and a number of years before, actually,
Okay, gotcha.
we took time to launch because I was getting feedback. I was talking to everybody from Hall of Fame legendary personnel guy Gil Brandt and
Mhm.
getting to coaches and friends throughout the league, general managers, personnel directors to get so we put this thing together the right way. And when we shared it with the football ops people in the league office, they loved it concept, but we were doing it privately, much like how the combine is privately managed and operated. We were doing it separate from the league, but as a service to the league.
Gotcha. And so the process of you kind of explained like, so NFL teams will go on a portal, they need a certain player, and then so that guy can get pulled on a Thursday and then moved and be on an active roster on Saturday. So I know that there's basically 4 sessions to this, right?
Yeah.
If they get pulled, then do you fill that spot or do you wait until the next session? And like, how does that work?
We filled the spot.
Okay.
We have a couple players coming in, this week, 4 guys that have had workouts and things. So yes, we replace our roster. We run it like an NFL team.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a full roster slot. We've got 60 guys plus 2 quarterbacks. There's 62 guys, and we have all positions, and we run our week just like an NFL practice. We teach guys up tempo. Now, the one thing we don't do is hit. We don't go full pads. We don't hit because we're keeping everybody healthy. But we do teach how to practice NFL tempo in jerseys and shorts, so that we can teach them how it will be at the NFL level. Because you got to have that tempo and the pace and the footwork and the hands and the angles at the NFL speed. But not taking guys to the grounds and things when we do our one-on-one competitions or 7-on-7, competitions. So it's a very intense, competitive environment, but we teach them how to practice so they're not hurting their teammates.
Gotcha. And then so basically people would need to check the website weekly because that roster turnover you could be a couple of new guys, a couple coming in every week. One thing you mentioned, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say the portal is 24/7 access to NFL teams. So some teams will have somebody check it daily and look at the tape. So we upload tape from practice right after. We get the best reps of the players so the teams can evaluate, and then they can compare the college grade they had for that player or a pro grade they had for that player with what they see, and they also know that the young man's going to be in great shape. He's going to be improving his football IQ because he's in the classroom looking at film with NFL coaches, and he's going to work on his technique. So whatever, if it was hands or footwork or just understanding the game at a higher level, whatever it is, we work on that.
Now, you also mentioned quarterbacks. Now, are they same thing? I thought there was a little difference between quarterback. I mean, you need a quarterback to throw the ball, clearly, but are those guys also getting called up too, or are they just kind of permanent guys?
This is a unique, obviously quarterback position is unique, but our quarterbacks in our camp come to us through our partnership with the XFL. Okay. And that's the next phase of our growth. Was we wanted to partner with the XFL. They have a very NFL friendly calendar. With their training camp in January, games in February, March, and April, allows players the opportunity, if they have great success in the XFL and are dominant in the XFL, they'll get evaluated by NFL teams for that game tape. on all those XFL games. And if they're good enough, their schedule allows them to join, NFL rosters in May, for OTA practices and mini camps and or June. And it also gives them time to heal up so they're physically ready when training camp comes so they can compete. So May and June allow them to put themselves on the radar with the team that signs them and helps them on their depth chart as they approach training camp. And then training camp comes. So the XFL calendar was very NFL friendly. Our job is to help guys make it to the National Football League. And in the process, they're going to have opportunities with the XFL, which aligns with our goal of getting them to the NFL.
So you said there, so right now there's two quote unquote XFL quarterbacks practicing. Do you mind telling us who they are?
Get back to the differential of the partnership. At all the other positions, the NFL Alumni Academy, we extend invitations and we work in collaboration with the XFL personnel directors to make sure that everybody that is on our invite list qualifies for their invitation list and opportunities. But our goal is to the guys that we invite have a higher probability of making it to an NFL, camp or practice squad. And so ultimately the quarterback piece, the XFL will assign quarterbacks, all right, that they want. And that gives us good arms throwing. Mm-hmm. So we have real competitive one-on-ones, 7-on-7s and team periods where we have good quarterbacks. And the two quarterbacks we have in session one are doing an outstanding job. So they're both two young men that are, I think, will do extremely well in the XFL. They both have had NFL, training camp time. One even played a year up in Canada. So that we've got a quarterback from Hawaii, Cole McDonald, mm-hmm. and a quarterback from Elon, Davis Cheek. And Davis and Cole have done an amazing job. Davis was released there at the end of Carolina camp. And Cole had been with Tennessee Titans and then played a year in Canada, and they're both doing a tremendous job, and I'm impressed, and I know the XFL leadership has got to be happy.
Oh, cool, interesting. So how did this all? Because clearly we're an XFL podcast show, and so how did the partnership come about between the Alumni Academy and the XFL? Well,
we're all NFL guys. Mm-hmm. And so are the XFL leadership, right? So Russ Brandon, Doug Whaley, had been president and general manager, respectively, of the Buffalo Bills. Doug's been in the league for years with Pittsburgh and other, and then Mark Ross was with the Giants. And so we had relationships and friendships with the leadership of the XFL, and ultimately, we discussed this very situation, how the academy could become also a development program for XFL players, because they're seeking, the next best players, right? Mm-hmm. The next best NFL guy, and we're here to develop NFL ready players. So we have the same goals, and we also have the same dynamics in the relationship with the NFL, where we want the players to succeed and go to the NFL, both us at the academy and the XFL leadership. They want the stars of their league to go star in the NFL because that makes the next rising star want to be an XFL star, and they want to play the highest level of football possible. So they want to have the best personnel available, and so it was a mutual benefit for both our academy and the XFL league as they reignite and relaunch. It was just a great fit, and the leadership works extremely well together, and we're allowing us to collaborate. So personnel we have are all going to be the rising stars.
So how does the process work? So you have your 4 sessions throughout the year. Players come in. Are those players that are part of the pool? Is the XFL working with you and saying, hey, these are the guys that we want? Or like, how does this player pool get filled?
Our director of player personnel is a longtime NFL veteran and pro personnel, Jeff Robinson. And JR and I sometimes with JR every week meets weekly and or daily with leadership from the XFL on their personnel. They have 8 personnel directors for their 8 teams, and then Doug Whaley has a staff at the league office for the XFL, and JR is our point man, and we collaborate. So everybody that we invite has gone through XFL scrutiny as well. If there's anybody they don't want on the board, that would have an impact on if we invite them or not. And ultimately, it's been a tremendous working dynamic, and so that's how we go through it. As you can imagine, collectively, we have all evaluated hundreds and hundreds of football players over the last 6 months, and obviously since training camp, the majority of the guys we reach out to were just released from an NFL team, and we're working to figure out what can help them return to an NFL roster. And those are the exact players that the XFL seeks because they want to have the next best player that isn't on an NFL roster.
So the process is they go in, they go to they are in this first session. If a guy gets cut, do you guys ever cut somebody? You bring somebody in, you're like, yeah, and this is just not working, or maybe they don't want to be there, or like,
Yeah.
So if they are cut, then they don't get, because there's this whole thing about if you graduate,
Right.
you get an XFL contract
Right.
to be part of the training camp, and you're basically guaranteed to be drafted.
So two parts to your two answers to your question. Yes, we do cut guys. We have that capability because we control it and we fund it, and we don't want guys that aren't passionately pursuing the higher level. So if a guy who got cut and is feeling sorry for himself and all that, we'll give him some counsel and some guidance and tell him to work through it and use it to fuel performance as opposed to fuel his depression. And so we work with those guys, but we won't allow the proverbial one bad apple, right, to spoil the opportunity for everyone else. So we have sent guys home each year, and if they weren't doing the work or they were making excuses, all the things that would get you cut if you were a free agent on an NFL team, late to meetings and miss a shuttle, excuses, no hustle, no effort, attitude, negative, bad attitude, anything that takes away a negative impact on the opportunity for the other, members of the academy and players that are seeking their professional dreams, they're out of here. And so we have a great environment. The enthusiasm and the effort is tremendous. It's positive. Guys rooting for each other, competing against each other, and so we do cut. And to the other part of your question about are they guaranteed a contract? Yes, part of the relationship we have with the XFL, and that's why we collaborate on the selection process, right, and who we invite, so that they're all XFL approved, if you will, and then when they graduate, they're guaranteed an opportunity to be on an XFL team in camp. Now, I can't say to the draft because I don't know the internal workings of how the XFL is going to manage all of the drafts, but they're guaranteed an opportunity to be on a roster in camp. And then they have to be the athlete to win the job, after the XFL's camp. And so we're betting that the guys we bring in are going to be frontline players in the XFL if they don't make an NFL roster.
Gotcha. And then if they do, like say you have somebody that gets picked up by an NFL roster, and I'm following pro football, over the last couple of years. There's the, Tom Brady's, these get these big contracts, but then there's a lot of guys that get cut, they get released, they get cut, you know what I mean? They go to another team and a week later they're back. So if a guy doesn't graduate but gets an NFL opportunity, then let's say he plays for the Lions for a week or so. One, would he, and he gets cut, does he go back to the academy, or is he just kind of done? And will that player get an XFL contract if they're not picked up down the road?
So it's a great question and an interesting scenario, and one that we've experienced. So What you described is what I call the up and down of the NFL, right? Especially the bottom of the roster. So guys will be up for 2 or 3 weeks, and then a veteran returns from IR and they're cut, right? And we've seen that time and time again. So when they are up, all right, we're excited, we're happy. When they're cut, they're part of the academy family. We will bring them back to complete graduation, as you will, and or if they've completed the graduation and then gone up to the NFL, and then it happens later, they're part of that guaranteed opportunity in the XFL.
Gotcha.
So those are a couple scenarios, but it does. You're spot on, Mark. It's the NFL up and down that these guys go through. They'll be up, 2 weeks on practice squad. They get elevated to active. They get to play special teams or get in the game, and then next week they're cut. And it's to no fault of their own, or just numbers game or new position needed, because the dynamics of the volatile nature of the NFL. You don't know exactly. Sometimes they'll cut a linebacker because they needed a tight end, and that's just roster spots and salary caps and all that. So there's a lot of dynamics into why a guy gets released. Our job is to overcome those and give them competitive advantage to return.
Gotcha. So I have two more questions. One is, originally the idea was that you guys were going to practice in Canton, Ohio. I was in Canton for the USFL championship game. Love Canton, Ohio. But then you guys moved to Texas. Was that always the original plan, or what was going behind? Because now you guys are basically in the home headquarters of the XFL.
Yeah. Well, two parts. We loved Canton, Ohio. I'm a football lifer, as we shared earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I just would love and respect the game and the history of the game. And that's the genesis and the birthplace of the NFL and of course the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So we loved being there and absorbing, that atmosphere. But it was in Northeast Ohio, and November, December is kind of some rough weather. And so we needed to go, when we expanded to all 22 positions, we needed to have a warm weather city. And in Dallas is centrally located to get to teams when players leave us. We're 15 minutes from the DFW airport, 25 minutes from Love Field. So we have great proximity. It's extremely convenient. This hotel that I'm in, where our team stays, our academy team stays, is less than a mile from Choctaw Stadium, where we practice, the old Texas Ranger Stadium that was reconfigured for football. And so all the dynamics were in place for efficiency. Then, top it off with the relationship and partnership with the XFL. It just makes for a natural transition. As a matter of fact, I'll add a little frosting on the cake to our academy package. When the NFL season ends, when our academy season ends, our players will go home for Christmas if they're not leaving to go to a team. After Christmas, they'll come back, and our performance coaches will spend 2 weeks leading up to the XFL training camp in January. They'll spend those 2 weeks after Christmas and until the training camp starts in early January, conditioning. So when you're an academy graduate, you're getting 2 weeks of extra elite conditioning. So when you hit the XFL training camp, you're ready. You're in the best shape. You're ready to go dominate. You can take all the things you applied and learned at the academy and move it forward to your career, starring in frontline guys in the XFL.
Oh, interesting. My final question is, there was talk about a TV show that you guys, there was filming of a TV show, but never aired. Is the XFL filming stuff now? Do you think is there any television around this stuff?
Obviously when the ownership of the league has the head of a huge production company in Danny Garcia, and one of the biggest movie stars on the planet in Dwayne Johnson, that lends itself to, I'm sure, a lot of different media situations. What you're referring to was a series that was filmed last year by a production company. They spent the season with us in Canton, Ohio, at our academy, and they created a show. It's an 8 episode show, and it was called the 54th Man. Obviously, 53-man rosters, and these are the next guys.
Uh-huh.
And so and to be honest with you, I'm not on that side of this business,
Mm.
and I don't know, but they wrote, created. I saw some episodes, and I saw the sizzle reel and the trailers and all that, but I don't know where it will end up.
Mhm.
They said it's the kind of content that is evergreen. Obviously, we're not playing games, and so you don't have dating. So they like the human interest stories of the players and the following through. And we had guys, doing proposals and things and during the season, and
Mhm.
it was just organic. And so they followed, and they went home with players on Thanksgiving and did different things. So it was pretty interesting. I haven't seen where it's headed.
Mhm.
They've been talking to networks and streaming services. So I gotta tag out on where
Mhm.
when and where it will air. What I saw was interesting, mostly because the stories behind these young men are quite interesting, quite motivating. You make you have empathy for all that they've done to overcome to pursue these dreams. So,
Mhm.
yeah, when and if that 53rd man airs or 54th man airs, stay tuned, I guess.
Mhm.
But we'll see. But no, I would imagine that with the leadership of the XFL, they'll have fantastic media coverage, and the social media aspect as well, because again, Dwayne Johnson's one of the more popular people on the planet.
Are they covering it right now while you're there?
We have
Or people are
yeah,
filming stuff?
yeah, we have a group that is filming and capturing things, and it's kind of piggybacking off of last year's program.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, Dean, I really appreciate you taking the time to come off the field and speak with us XFL fans and kind of give you some insight. We definitely learned a lot, and I'm very excited and are interested. I know a lot of fans will be interested in following the players that are part of the academy because they could be make their way to the NFL and they could be stars in the XFL. So I appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for having me. We're really enjoying the dynamics of the partnership with the XFL. Anything that's good for football, we support, and we're excited about the leadership and what they're doing and where they're taking the league. And this new launch of the XFL, I think, will have great legs. And we're here for the long haul, and we want to continue to support the XFL for the long haul. So hopefully, our academy grads can shine on the gridiron this spring for the XFL teams.